Yeah, I still need my voice for a couple more Sundays. So he's telling the people, go and plunder the Egyptians, silver and gold. And by this time, and all the plagues that have happened, it's probably, oh yeah, here, take it. We know you're leaving. Take it, get it there. And the verse goes on. It says, moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. So they realized that Moses had a connection with God, that his God was stronger than any of their gods. And so that's why they kind of held him in high esteem even before. So Moses said, thus saith the Lord, about midnight I will go out in the midst of Egypt, and every firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sits on his throne, even to the firstborn of the slave girl who is behind the handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle. So, from the Pharaoh, if you want to say the highest of the highest in Egypt, to the lowest of the lowest slave person, the firstborn is going to be taken. And then he adds, and the cows, or the cattle. So what do we say about cattle? They're sacred. So he's hitting the, where it hurts, if you want, even more so, because of their sacredness of God. All the firstborn in the land of Egypt, this plague was directed against two significant Egyptian gods. The first is Osiris, Osiris, was the Egyptian god thought to be the giver of life. And second, this was against the supposed deity of Pharaoh himself, because his own household would be touched. Okay. There will be a great cry throughout all of the land of Egypt, such as there has never been, nor will be again. You can just imagine the wailing, and because that really happens in funerals and stuff there in the Middle East. The women just out loud crying, wailing, So now the loss of the firstborn. But not a dog shall growl against any of the people of Israel, either man or beast, that you may know that the Lord makes his distinction between the Egypt and Israel. So no one's going to curse the Israelis, No one's going to say bad things. Not even a dog is going to go against the people of Israel. So God is really drawing the line here. And all these your servants shall come down to me and bow down to me, saying, get out, you and all the people who follow you. And after that, I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in hot anger. So, yeah, righteous anger. It's kind of like Pharaoh. Didn't you get the first one, second one, the third one? Yeah. You're not listening, Pharaoh. Then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh will not listen to you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. So one more time, Pharaoh will not listen. Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, and the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the people of Israel go out of the land. That heart has to be stone. By now, yeah. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, this month shall be for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Tell all the congregation of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, every man shall take a lamb, according to their father's houses, a lamb for a household. Okay. Now here, notice it says congregation of Israel. It's kind of a different term. Almost, if you want to say the term for church that we see in the New Testament. So it's a congregation of Israel, the gathering of the people on the 10th day of this month, okay? And if the household is too small for a lamb, then he and his nearest neighbor shall take according to the number of persons, according to what each can eat, you shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male a year old, and you may take it from the sheep or from the goats. So they can take it from the sheep or the goats, the firstborn, without blemish. Okay. And you shall keep it until the 14th day of this month, when the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill their lambs at twilight. Why 4 days? Because the 10th day they're supposed to take the lamb, and on the 14th day they're supposed to kill it. Well, if kids are in the families, what are the kids going to do with the lamb? Going to attach to it, isn't it? So in a way, it's part of their family for 4 days. And that was one commentary I had was 4 days. But we can also think about, the sacrifice of Christ. And of course we say in 3 days. We say, that is the period of mourning, for Israel. And here's the assembly of the congregation of Israel again. It's when I read this, I always think of when we lived in Turkey, and actually, this is Ramadan right now. It's their, it's 28 days of fasting. And you say, oh, they have to fast for 28 days? You have to realize that they fast from sun up to sundown. Yeah, so they get up and eat a big breakfast, and then they go throughout the day. And when the sun sets, at least in the town we lived in, the cannon goes off, to signify sunset. It goes off. And you look out on the streets and stuff, and the men are there with tables, and they are given a feast every night. So that's how they fast. I mean, just to let you know. But yeah, I love that fast, really. Yeah. All the eggs and pancakes you can eat before sunup, and then eat the big meal at sunset. But what I was getting at is that we lived usually above in 2-story or 3-story apartment when we were in Turkey. And during Ramadan, they would slaughter the lambs for Ramadan down below our apartment. And when I read this, I always remember that's, and of course, they weren't too humane doing it, because we'll see, that it's not humane, slashing the throats, to kill the lamb. But yeah, so even in Muslim, lambs are and goats, I guess you could say, are slaughtered for their religious ceremonies. So then they shall take some of the blood and put it on 2 doorposts in the lintel of the house in which they eat it. Okay, so we see the doorpost in the top, the lintel. Okay. And they shall eat the flesh that night, roasted on the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall eat it. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roasted, its head with its legs and its inner parts. Nothing to be left. Have you ever done a Seder meal here? Long time ago, probably. Some churches and even chapels I've been involved with, they do Seder meals or Christian Seder meal. And I know Dayton, Washington, my first intentional, they did a Seder meal on Monday, Thursday. And then everyone went upstairs for the new Seder meal of communion. So it was very moving, that we did it in the Old Testament way, and then walked up the stairs and did communion with that. But yeah. And you shall let none of it remain until the morning. Anything that remains until morning you shall burn. So a total sacrifice, not just a part or partial, but a total sacrifice of the lamb. In this manner you shall eat it, with your belt fastened, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And you shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. Of course, in the military, we called Passover when you didn't make rank. 12:12. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he was. I think he was like the second born. Yeah, or died off early. Let me research that for you. Come to think on it, because I think I saw where he was like the second. Yeah. Or God spared him so he could see the disaster that was going to happen. But I think he was the second. I'll look it up. Okay. Huh? Yeah. But was Pharaoh the firstborn was the question. So I'll have to, and we may not see it in Scripture, but I'll look it up on, Josephus has probably told me, or in Josephus's book, history. So. Okay, so the Lord's Passover. For I'll pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike the firstborn. And like the last statement, and I will execute judgments on the gods of Egypt. I am the Lord. The blood shall be the sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I'll pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be for you a memorial day, that you shall keep it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. As a statute forever, you shall keep it as a feast. So they continue to do it, to celebrate this day, the Passover. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall remove leaven out of your houses. For if anyone eats what is leavened from the first day until the seventh day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. Kind of harsh. Yeah. Leaven, take the yeast out. If not, you'll be cut off. And we'll kind of see why. On the first day you shall hold a holy assembly, and on the seventh day a holy assembly. No work shall be done on those days, but what everyone needs to eat, that alone may be prepared by you. So we're talking thousands and thousands of people doing everything that's being dictated to them. And you shall observe the feast of the unleavened bread, for on this very day I brought your host out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day throughout your generations as a statute forever. The feast of the unleavened bread. In the first month, from the 14th day of the month, at evening you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. .7 days. For 7 days no leaven is to be found in your houses. If anyone eats what is leavened, that person will be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he is a sojourner or a native of the land. You shall eat nothing leavened in all your dwelling places. You shall eat unleavened bread. So all this is instructions for Moses to do, to say. So, 7. Then Moses called all the elders of Israel and said to them, "Go and select lambs for yourselves according to your clans and kill the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin. and touch the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. None of you shall go out of the door of his house until the morning. What does using hyssop bring to mind? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, Leviticus 14:6, the ceremony of the cleansing of the leper used hyssop to apply blood. Numbers 19:6, hyssop was used to make the ashes of a red heifer for the water of purification. Numbers 19:18, hyssop was used to apply the purification water. David, in his great psalm of repentance, said, "Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean." Psalm 51:7. Hyssop is always connected with purification through sacrifice. Hyssop was even connected with Jesus' great sacrifice of sin, John 19:29. Points out when Jesus was offered sour wine to drink on the cross, the sponge soaked with it was put on a bunch of hyssop. We can see the Old Testament Passover totally relating to the New Testament Passover. I mean, it's here for us to see. For the Lord will pass through and strike the Egyptians, and when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the 2 doorposts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not allow the destroyer to enter your houses to strike you. The destroyer. I always think of Touched by an Angel. You ever watch that movie? And when the man angel shows up, he was always the angel of death. Yeah, and so when he shows up, you're wondering, okay, who's going to die now in this episode? But everyone goes to heaven. So it's like, okay. You shall observe this rite as a statute for you and for your sons forever. Okay. And it says children forever, another, or descendants. And when you come to the land that the Lord will give you, as he has promised, you shall keep this service. So it's something not to forget. I mean, you almost want to say, how could they forget this? Sometimes I think we sometimes forget history and what history has done to our nation, and it's kind of maybe we always need the reminders, and this is one that God says you will always remind generation after generation after generation. And then as we look at the New Testament with communion, it's something we observe, especially this time of the year, every Sunday, and when it's not Advent and Lent, it's every other Sunday. But it's something that we remember that he gave his life for us on that cross. So it's something that, as he says, from generation to generation. Hopefully we're teaching our kids what it's all about too. I know the confirmants are being taught what it means. So, and when your children say to you, "What do you mean by this service?" you shall say, "It is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover." For he passed over the houses of the people of Israel in Egypt, and when he struck the Egyptians, but spared our houses. And the people bowed their heads and worshipped. Then the people of Israel went and did so as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so they did. The 10th plague. At midnight the Lord struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on the throne, to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the livestock. So no one was spared except. Okay. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where someone was not dead. And that had to be terrible. Then he summoned Moses and Aaron by night and said, well, maybe he gets it right. Up, go out from among my people, both you and the people of Israel, and go and serve the Lord as you have said. Take your flocks and your herds as you have said, and be gone and bless me also. Always got to get the last word in there, doesn't he? Oh yeah. Yeah, just in case, could you bless me? Yeah. So that nothing else happens. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So many times we hear, well, God is such a loving God. There cannot be any judgment. God is such a loving God. It's like, and it's like the show I just mentioned. Everyone goes to heaven. Because he's such a loving God. Why would he even do this? Why would he even allow this? Well, then also you look at the New Testament. When Christ was born, what did Herod want to do? Kill all the children. Yeah, I mean, so you look at history, or in biblical history, kind of repeating itself in different ways. Yeah. If you put the blood on the door and the lintel, there's no problem, right? If you believe in the blood of Christ and he suffered and died on the cross for you, that's the sacrifice. That's the blood on our doors, that we are under his blood now. God sees us through Jesus' blood and the sacrifice once and for all for us. But then there's no problem. Exactly. But yet, there is judgment. Why? Well, even in the sermon, why do we need salvation? Because we're sinful, saints and sinners, but we're sinners, but we are forgiven sinners. Make sure we add that, let's put it that way. Okay, the Egyptians were urgent with the people, with the people to send them out of the land in haste. For they said, we shall all be dead. So in other words, there might be a number 11 plague, and we all could be dead. Let's get them out of here, you know. So the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading bowls being bound up in their cloaks on their shoulders. The people of Israel had also done as Moses told them, for they had asked the Egyptians for silver and gold, jewelry, and for clothing. And the Lord had given the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they let them have what they asked. Thus they plundered the Egyptians. And the people of Israel journeyed from Ramesses to Sukkoth, about 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children. That's a big crowd. A mixed multitude also went up with them, and very much livestock, both flocks and herds. And they baked unleavened cakes of the dough that they had brought out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt and could not wait, nor had they prepared any provisions for themselves. So that's why the unleavened bread. You couldn't wait for it to even rise. Okay. The time that the people of Israel lived in Egypt was 430 years. Yeah. I thought I read that somewhere. What verse was that? 38? Let's see. Possibly including such Egyptians as those mentioned in 9:2, Exodus 9:2. See, 9:2, it says, if you refuse to let them go and continue to hold them back, the hand of the Lord will bring a terrible plague on your livestock in your field, on your horses and donkeys and camels, and on your cattle and sheep and goats. But the Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and that of Egypt, so that no animal belonging to Israel will die. Not sure why that pointed to that. Oh, because that's not the right verse. 9:20. My eyes aren't working this morning. So, the officials of Pharaoh, who feared the word of the Lord, hurried to bring their slaves and their livestock inside. But those who ignored the word of the Lord left their slaves and livestock out in the field. Remember that? Yeah. So they did save some. So yeah, I would say that it covers Egyptians, and the thing is too is that the Israelites probably weren't the only slaves, there in Egypt. They probably had others. But if they followed the rules that Moses set down for Passover, they were spared. Okay. At the end of 430 years, on that very day, all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It was a night of watching by the Lord to bring them out of the land of Egypt. So the same night is a night of watching kept to the Lord by all the people of Israel throughout their generations. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, this is the statute of the Passover. No foreigner shall eat of it. But every slave that is bought for money may eat of it after you have circumcised him. No foreigner or hired workers may eat of it. It shall be eaten in one house. You shall not take any of the flesh outside the house, and you shall not break any of its bones. Sound familiar? I mean, you're getting that picture. You know, the picture of the sacrificial lamb that was sacrificed for us. No bone was broken. And all the congregation of Israel shall keep it. If a stranger shall sojourn with you and would keep the Passover of the Lord, let all his males be circumcised. Then he may come near and keep it. He shall be as a native of the land, but no uncircumcised person shall eat of it. So in the New Testament, when we talk about Jewish Christians or the converts to the Jewish converts to believe in Jesus, these were some of the laws that, you know, some of the, if you want to say apostles or people wanted, you know, to have in order to follow Christ. And Peter and Paul would say, no, you know, Gentiles, we don't have to do this. There shall be one law for the native and for the stranger who sojourns among you. All the people of Israel did just as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron. And on that very day, the Lord brought the people of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their hosts. That had to take more than one day. I mean, sometimes we think, oh, that crossing or that leaving had to just take one day. You know, it probably took a while for them to cross. The Lord said to Moses, consecrate to me all the firstborn. Whatever is the first to be open the womb among the people of Israel, both man and beast, is mine. Dedicating the firstborn. Oh, it says man, both man or beast. So, yeah. Well, we think we think of Samuel. You know, he was given to the Lord. You know, that had to be. That's the women's Bible study on Wednesday. Is looking at Samuel and how his mother, even when he was, well, it was right after he was weaned, gave him up. Yeah. So, yeah. 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 Well, I didn't quite understand. Well, yeah, by God he was, you know, because at the age of 12, where was he found? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And he was, how did Scripture say? The men, or let's say the rabbis, were astonished by what he knew at the age of 12. I always like that story too. You know, you can imagine Joseph and Mary walking back, you know, and somewhere down the line is, where's Jesus? You know, well, I thought he was with you. You know, I thought he was with you. You know, I had a friend that told me that one time his parents were driving somewhere and they stopped at a rest stop, and they left him. They had to go all the way around and come back. But I said, what? Jesus wasn't worried. He knew where he was supposed to be. But yeah. That was, no, if they were going back to Nazareth, that's 80 miles. Yeah, so, I mean, they were a day or two journey away from Jerusalem. Yeah. You can just imagine that scared they were. Oh, he's off playing with his friends. Well, no, he was in the temple. Then Moses said to the people, remember this day in which you came out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. For by a strong hand the Lord brought you out of this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten. Today in the month of Abib, you are going out. And when the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Hivitites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you shall keep this service in this month. So that promise was there for them to have. "7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten for 7 days, no leavened bread shall be seen with you, and no leaven shall be seen with you in all your territory. You shall tell your sons on that day, it is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt. And it shall be to you as a sign on your hand and as a memorial between your eyes, and the law of the Lord may be on your mouth. For with a strong hand the Lord has brought you out of Egypt." I guess you could say with a strong hand he brought him out. Finally, yeah. "You shall therefore keep this statute as its appointed time from year to year." Again, the celebration. "When the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites as he swore, swore to you and your fathers, and shall give it to you, you shall set apart to the Lord all the first opens, all that first opens the womb, all the firstborn of your animals, and all the males shall be the Lord's. Every firstborn donkey you shall redeem with a lamb, or if you will not redeem it, you shall break its neck. Every firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. And when in time to come your sons ask you, what does this mean? You shall say to him, by the strong hand of the Lord brought us out of Egypt from the house of slavery." For when Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let us go, the Lord killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man, the firstborn of animals. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all the males that first open the womb, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. So we say that Christ is what? The firstborn. Yeah. The firstborn, yeah. He shall be as, or it shall be as a mark on your hand, or frontlets between your eyes, for by a strong hand of the Lord brought us out of Egypt. One translation's symbol on your forehead, on your hand, and a symbol on your forehead. When the Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near, for God said, "Lest the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt." So it's not going to be a quick journey. God's kind of given them an idea. It's not going to be here, you're going to be in the land of milk and honey. And we see the red marks on that map. That's the journey that they'll be on. But God led his people around by the way of the wilderness toward the Red Sea. And the people of Israel went up out of the land of Egypt, equipped for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him. All there had to be left is just bones of Joseph. Had made his sons of Israel solemnly swear, saying, "God will surely visit you, and you shall carry my bones with you from here." And they moved on from Sukkoth and encamped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them along the way, and by night a pillar of fire to give them light, that they might travel by day and night. So he's leading them out of Egypt. He's not pushing them out of Egypt. He's leading them like a shepherd out of Egypt, in front of them at day and at night. The pillar of the cloud by day and the pillar of the fire by night did not depart from before the people. Until they got to the promised land. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the people of Israel to turn back and encamp in front of Pi-hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, in front of Baal-zephon. You shall encamp facing it by the sea." For Pharaoh will say to the people of Israel, "They are wandering in the land. The wilderness has shut them in." Pharaoh hasn't given up yet. And God hasn't given up on him either, because we see in the next verse, "And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. And I will get glory over Pharaoh and all his host. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord." And they did so. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, the mind of Pharaoh and his servants was changed towards the people, and they said, "What is this? What have we done? What that we that we have let Israel go from serving us. Wait a minute. Now we're going to have to make those bricks. Huh? Wait a minute. We're going to have to do the work that our slaves were doing. So what have we done?" Fickle minds of people, I guess. Yeah. So he made ready his chariots and took his army with him, and took 600 chosen chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. the picture of chariots and Ben-Hur, the races and stuff. 600 plus. I don't think there was any I-5s there wide enough for more than one or two chariots itself. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he pursued the people of Israel while the people of Israel were going out defiantly. The Egyptians pursued them all Pharaoh's horses and chariots and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them, encamped at the sea, at Pi, in front of Baal-zephon. Are we about at the hour? A couple minutes. When Pharaoh drew near, the people of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were marching after them. And they feared greatly, and the people of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, "It's because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness. What have you done to us to bring us out of Egypt? Is not this what we said?" Excuse me, I'm losing my voice. "Said to you in Egypt, leave us alone that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness." So, and we see this all throughout the history of Israel, where they turn to God and they turn away. And the fear is there, because look, behind them is the sea, and in front of them is this big army coming after them, and so but it says they cried to the Lord, but then they went to Moses and said, "Moses, what did you do?" I guess that's a blame game, like going all the way back to original sin, Adam and Eve. What did you do, Adam? Well, that woman that you gave me. And then what did Eve say? The serpent. So the blame game is here. So we cried to the Lord, but we're blaming Moses for taking us out of Egypt. So let's close there. So we'll start at 14:12. Let's close in prayer and then go and enjoy the beautiful day. Heavenly gracious Lord, we give you thanks and praise for looking at the Exodus and what has transpired during the Passover, and then relating it to our Passover, that through Christ we are redeemed. Through Christ we are saved. Through his blood. We thank you for that. We pray that you go with us now as we go our ways. And again, we thank you for the beautiful weather. In Jesus Christ's name, amen. Okay, 14:12.